Hi, this is Trevor, and it is time for our weekly tarot card of the week. My apologies, we're a day late today. Normally I post these on Saturdays, but yesterday, what with some technical things and also a very busy day, I've had to put this off till today. So for those of you who've been waiting, thanks for your patience, and we'll be getting into our card right away. We've been working through the Rider-Waite tarot deck, and illustrated by Pamela Coleman Smith. I don't like to leave her out. And I've set aside the cards that we've already covered. And those videos are here on my YouTube page, as well as on my regular website, which is where you'll find information about me, my work, how to book appointments, and lots of other stuff. And that's at trevorsense.com. And I will include that within the description at the bottom of this video. So you can find me there if you're interested in how I work and how those things go. But enough about all that. Let's get into our card of the week. I always like to cut them. And we have the King of Pentacles. Well, we've had a lot of wands in the last few weeks, so I'm glad we're getting into a different element. And this is a court card, of course. Tarot works with, as a symbolic language, it works with these different component parts. There's the 22 major arcana cards, which tend to talk a lot about the lessons that are moving through circumstances. That's one way of looking at it. And then the court cards are more the circumstances themselves, or pardon me, the minor arcana are the circumstances themselves. And the court cards within the minor arcana, just like in playing cards, how there's the ace through 10 and then jack, queen, king. In the minor arcana, there's page, knight, queen, king. In some systems, another deck that was created about the same time as Arthur Edward Waite commissioning Pamela Coleman Smith to create this deck. Another scholar and artist was Aleister Crowley commissioning Lady Frida Harris to create the Crowley Thoth deck. And they both tie into Western esoteric and occult symbolism. But Crowley changed his structure a little bit. He was kind of a radical. He had prince, princess, queen, and knight. There was no king. In a way, the knight kind of took the part of the king. Now, if this all sounds confusing, it's really language. It's symbolic language. And languages evolve and change over time to suit the needs of how those things work. But there's certain things in the structure that remain the same. So here we have the King of Pentacles. And kings are usually associated with authority, what is kind of an administrative force. And before we get into, cries of things being sexist, the cards can be used to describe people, and they can be described in terms of situations. So a king is not always necessarily going to just be talking about a man. It can sometimes be talking about a situation where we are kind of moving into that mode or that gear. Just as pages can represent sort of childlike situations where there's very free exchange, and sometimes a situation where there are those who have to be kind of looked out for or looked after. And knights can represent questing, and queens can represent a kind of nurturing and a very, very strong creative energy that has its own directing force. Kings are about situations where there's going to be accountability, either on our part or in what we are dealing with in terms of that force of authority. So I realize that some of that might sound a little confusing, but this is where we're not so much trying to memorize the cards. We're not trying to say this card always means this, but we're understanding a symbolic language that is going to speak to us in different ways. So a king can represent, if we're talking about a person, it can talk about a man who's in a position of some maturity, a position of some accountability. He's done some of his learning, and there's a sense of some of that authority that's going on. And the King of Pentacles, Pentacles are the earth element. So that's where, on a very superficial level, we're thinking about, maybe somebody who's strong with their resources. Not necessarily a rich person, but a person who knows the worth and the value of things. There's many people who have lots of money and are not necessarily what we really consider rich. Some of them are never satisfied, it's never enough. There's kind of sometimes a spiritual poverty. And then there are those who maybe only have a little, but they do a great deal with it. I think of a good friend of mine who's very, very earth-friendly. And nothing goes to waste in his garden. And he pays attention to how things are going and growing, and he is somebody who I would consider kind of a king of pentacles. So there's that aspect to it. It's someone who is able to see the worth and value in things and work to bring them out. Now, again, when we look at it not just as a person, we have to think about and pay attention to what the person seeking the reading may be needing in terms of that interaction. Are they being accountable themselves in terms of going to that person for that experience or for that valuing? And then we have to pay attention to the other cards around that to see how it goes. I was asked recently about card reversals. You know, when you buy a deck of tarot cards, there's a little book that comes with them that says when the card is right side up, it means one thing. When it's upside down, it means another thing. And we pay attention to that to a degree. But as an intuitive reader, over time, you're not paying attention so much to whether the card is right side up or upside down, but what it's saying in relation. How you can see it getting along with the other cards that are kind of present, what that interaction is, and what your intuition is telling you. So when the King of Pentacles is reversed, or some would say ill aspected, when he's kind of off his feed, this is somebody who's not necessarily seeing the real worth in a situation, maybe just kind of looking at the short-term gain. And it can be a workaholic. It can be like habitual patterns taking over. You notice how he has the grapes growing up around him. And they're also kind of in the design of the cloak that he's wearing. And it's almost like what he's managing, if he doesn't keep an eye on it, can take over and take control. There's a line in a song from a cheesy rock opera in the 1970s that I think of. And it's actually from Paul Williams wrote the score. It's called Phantom of the Paradise. And I'm an old rocker. And there's a line in the song that says, "You're working so hard to be somebody special. You're not working just to survive, but you're working so hard you don't even know you're alive." I might have gotten it a little bit wrong, but that's where it's almost like the pattern has taken over. The mindfulness has been momentarily lost. And the King of Pentacles, you know, this person who has that capability of producing is being controlled by the very things that he's been trying to manage. So that's when it's kind of coming through in an unhealthy way. So these are just examples. If you're looking to me to sort of say, what does this card always mean? That gets a little frustrating. You're paying attention to how they're interacting together. So I hope everyone is having a great week, and I'll look forward to some further sharing with you all. Take care, and until next week, enjoy the sunshine when you can. Bye for now.